Indian heads of social media and instant messaging applications like WhatsApp, Twitter and Facebook could be facing jail time if the new recommendations from the panel to curb mob lynching are accepted. The committee warns criminal cases filed against top executives if their platform is misused. The committee also recommended the appointment of superintendent of police in each district to deal with cases of lynching. We have Meenakshi now joining us with more details on the phone line. Meenakshi, good afternoon to you. Tell us this, what is the panel exactly recommending? How big of a deterrent will this be?
Well, this is a clampdown on social media in particular in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's judgment, our viewers will recall, wherein the Supreme Court had mandated for Parliament to step in and enact a law specifically for the purposes of curbing and checking on mob violence. Subsequent to that, the Government of India had constituted an interministerial committee which was headed by Home Secretary Rajiv Gauba, which has now, we are being given to understand, submitted a report to Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh, who is also heading this group of ministers looking into cases of lynching across various states and the role of fake news and internet platforms in the propagation of such instances. So, yes, we have seen in the recent past as to how Union IT Minister had conducted this meeting with WhatsApp CEO, where there was some very hard talk that the government had indulged in with the WhatsApp CEO, saying that WhatsApp as a platform in India needs to take greater accountability. It needs to have a corporate, physical, present identity in India, and also greater compliance of Indian laws, because thus far what is happening is news is circulating, but really the accountability factor is as good as zero, and there is also no trace back of the origin of such a sinister news. So this is very much in pursuance of that intention of the Government of India, that this committee headed by Rajiv Gauba has made certain recommendations to the group of ministers. Now, the final authority will be with the GOM to go ahead and accept some recommendations and perhaps, implement them in a more solid form.
All right, Meenakshi, many thanks for joining us. There we also have Abha Singh on the phone line with us. Ms. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, with this move, with the panel suggesting filing criminal cases against companies, do you believe that there will be more accountability if accepted?
Accountability is something which is required because the manner in which mob lynches are happening, fake news is being spread and innocent lives are being lost, I think we require accountability. But the recommendations of the committee need to be further looked into, and there should be a proper debate over it before it becomes a law. But nonetheless, accountability is required because that is the only way spreading of fake news and people trying to create mischief and malice can be controlled.
Also, ma'am, if you can tell us, what is your take on fake news itself? Because we've seen how social media companies, in fact, for instance, several messaging applications had brought in a lot of changes within their applications itself. But that hasn't really done much to the kind of cases that we're seeing on mob lynching itself.
The issue is fake news is a big menace, and as I said, criminal elements are trying to spread problems in the country. Innocent people are being lost, so I think it needs to be regularized, and if not even WhatsApp, everything on social media now needs to be looked with another eye because it is being attacked by criminals.
All right, Ms. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. We also have Pawan Dugal, cyber expert, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Dugal, thank you so much for joining us. What is your take on the suggestion coming in from the panel now that, filing criminal cases is necessary to begin accountability?
I think this is the right step in the right direction. The fact is that people believe that social media gives them complete access to a lawless jungle, where they have absolute right to not just destroy people's reputations, but also people's lives and property. So in this context, no wonder it's the right approach to take, that you cannot really hide behind the so-called cloak of anonymity. You cannot mingle yourself in the mob and say that mob is supreme and that mob violence is equivalent to mob death and stuff like that. So I think it's been high time. The government has been dragging its feet. This is a proposition of law that's there under the Information Technology Act, where under Section 79, all these service providers are in any case going to be made liable for any information which will tantamount to fake news. But because the said law has been very, very, shall I say, leniently implemented, we haven't really started seeing the impact of this on the ground. But very quickly, I think this is the right direction to go. And of course, there must be accountability, there must be transparency, and there must be a deterrent message for all people that you do not hide behind fake news because we will go on and get you.
This will be a better deterrent. We were just talking to Ms. Singh as well a little while ago about how measures had in fact come in from some applications after fake news in fact spread on mob lynching, but that hasn't really translated on ground.
Most of those measures are more likely to be lip service than anything substantial. Please understand, it's a huge nation of 1.3 billion people. There are so many communities, so many mini nations as part of India. So we have a huge sociological challenge as we go forward. And merely saying that we are going to restrict the dissemination to 5 users is not in any case going to hamper or hinder the intrinsic creativity of the Indian mind to find out indirect ways to target people. And I think ever since this mob culture has started coming in, there is an immense concern because it's actually detrimentally even impacting India's reputation at a global level. And the fact that we have not been able to take any effective deterrent action only complicates the scenario. On top of it, a majority of these service providers who are invariably sitting tight as mere spectators while mayhem happens on their network in terms of dissemination and transmission of fake news, clearly have to realize that that's not the way going forward. You have to proactively help the government in reaching out to those handles, those people who are disseminating, creating such fake news. And if that is so, then they should also take into account appropriate due diligence mechanisms. But again, the onus is on the government. The government has to effectively implement the law. The deterrence is currently missing. And the deterrence needs to be as a message thrown across, not just to all service providers, but also to the faceless citizens who are part of the great mob democracy, that look, you cannot hide behind mobs and go ahead and do lynchings and yet expect that the process of law will be a mute spectator.
All right, Mr. Duggal, many thanks for joining us. We also have Ritesh Bhatia, cyber security expert, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Bhatia, good afternoon to you. First of all, we were just talking a little while ago about how this perhaps could be a good deterrent now that social media companies are under scanner. Do you believe that these suggestions by the panel must be accepted now the onus is on the government?
I completely echo the views of what the previous speaker has said, the previous guest has said. At the same time, I also want to say that, the government cannot escape its responsibility just by passing the liability on to the service providers. Here, I think the government also needs to take stringent actions because they have also a lot of evidences about what people are doing about, in terms of fake news, in terms of lynching and all that. What actions have they also taken, which is, proving to be a deterrent to a common person like me or to all the common citizens as such. Having said that, yes, Facebook, social media platforms, they are providing a particular platform. Now, the platform was intended to do good stuff. Now, if that platform is being used to do more, to spread more and more rumors or used for the negative thing, then they need to be brought under the law of the land.
And do you also believe that the measures that were in fact brought in were merely lip service?
I wouldn't, completely agree to that point. See, what will happen when the measures that we are talking about, like for example, if you are referring to the forwards or certain other things that they have been, doing it, then yes, to certain extent, I would say very minimal extent, it has helped. But as of now, taking a criminal action against these particular, who are these guys means, the top guys, will really put them on their feet. And they will ensure a lot of discipline being used on their particular platforms. They're going to use a lot of actions also, and they have to also. So I think this move is a welcome move, but at the same time, the request is to the government also to not just pass the entire liability to these people, but also take part in, take certain actions.
All right, Mr. Bhatia, thank you so much for joining us. That seems to be the sentiment across the board, that saying that these suggestions by the panel for filing criminal cases against social media companies could be held liable if accepted, is a welcome move, but now the onus is on the government.